Alright guys, here are two more movies that scared the shit out of me. And once again, I feel like both these movies would be paired well as a double feature for a fun and spooky night, but nonetheless, let's get into it. First up, let's talk about the Poughkeepsie Tapes. Because this movie was just genuinely fucking unsettling. It's filmed half mockumentary style as well as half found footage style as well, which I personally really love because it kind of takes you into this sense of it being real. This movie follows some homicide detectives in New York who discover hundreds of video cassettes. And on these video cassettes are the accounts of a brutal, sadistic serial killer. But I'm not gonna lie, like this movie may not be for everyone because it is extremely gory as well as extremely brutal. But there are so many scenes that just like really shook me to my core with this one. But the one that really comes to mind is the basement scene where the killer walks in, and it's the way he walks in that was just what the fuck freaky. If you want to check this one out, here's the list of where it is currently streaming. Next up is the movie Lake Mungo. This movie follows a family who are still reeling from their teenage daughter's death, and since her passing, they've been experiencing some kind of unexplainable things happening around their house. So they hire a parapsychologist who then leads them to discover their daughter's double life, basically. And with that discovery, it then leads them to Lake Mungo. This movie has so many layers, and you think you know where it's going, and then it just has so many different twists and turns. Lake Mungo is also filmed half mockumentary as well as half found footage, and like I said, it is creepy and just overall eerie. Like the scene when the parents find the teenage daughter's cell phone and they open it, and what they find honestly fucking rattled me. Because it took me a few seconds to actually get what the meaning was on the cell phone, and then once I got it, I was like, bitch. And if you would like to check this one out, here's the list of where this one is currently streaming. And as always, if you guys have seen either one of these movies, please let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. And I am always up for recommendations, movies that may have scared the shit out of you. Please drop them in the comments as well, and if I haven't seen them, I will most definitely be checking them out.
In this video, you learn about the Batman, but something is terribly wrong. The individual was described as witnessed as a man in a bat suit hiding in a dark corner. Here is an artist rendition. Witness reporting that the man was seen walking towards a special containment area. I'm guessing those patients from before are in the special containment area? He was said to be muttering justice and looked malnourished, as if he was isolated from the earth for a long period of time. After which screaming could be heard from the cells, but he was never seen again, not him leaving the way he came, just vanished from nothing. However, what he left behind haunts the city of Gotham even to this day. Out of the 4 patients in special containment, only patient 0 survived. The rest horribly and disturbingly murdered, each marked with a bat symbol. The bodies were all neatly arranged in a shape resembling a bat. Patient 0 was left not touched, but left in an even worse mental state than before. His doctors and physicians informed us of his drawings of the man, and said that he won't stop talking about him, and that he's ready for when he returns. This is the image he drew.
This teacher had a baby with her 13-year-old student twice. This is a disturbing case of Mary Kay Letourneau and Billy Falau. Billy was born on June 26, 1983 in Washington. He grew up with his parents and with his 3 older siblings. Like his siblings, Billy went to Shorewood Elementary School and had 34-year-old Mary Kay Letourneau as his 2nd grade teacher. Now, Billy was very artistic. He was really good at drawing, and Mary decided to kind of step in and just kind of help him develop these skills. Mary was also really good at drawing, so the two of them would just kind of hang out after class. They would draw together and talk. Now, Mary's son Steve was around the same age as Billy, so the two of them started to get very close. They began hanging out outside the classroom. In fact, Billy would often come over to Mary's house to hang out with her son Steve, and then Mary would invite Billy to stay and have dinner with her and her family. In the summer of 1996, Mary began taking a class at a local college, and at the same time, Billy was also at that college taking a summer art class. Now, technically, Mary was not his teacher at this time since it was summer break, but still, she was 34 years old and Billy was only 12 years old. So during the summer, Billy and Mary began running into each other even more, and they started hanging out more and more. At this point, Mary said that she started to feel like she was becoming boyfriend and girlfriend with Billy. Yes, this 34-year-old lady said that she started to feel like she was boyfriend and girlfriend with a 12-year-old boy. At one point, Billy told Mary that he was in love with her, and apparently Mary told him to put those feelings away, to leave her alone, and to no longer speak to her. However, by July of that summer, the two of them were now having... So clearly she didn't stay away from him. So that summer comes to an end and Billy enters the 7th grade, and that's when Mary realizes that she is pregnant with his baby. Yes, this 34-year-old lady is now carrying her 13-year-old student's baby. Mary did her best to keep this relationship a secret and this pregnancy a secret, but eventually her husband Steve found these love letters between her and Billy. And he confronted Mary about these letters and she admitted to everything. Of course, Steve was shocked by this. He was like, wait, what? You're having an affair with a minor? What is going on? So of course he was heartbroken by this, but he decided to not contact the police. However, he did confide in a relative about this, and that relative is the one that called the police and reported Mary's abuse. Mary was immediately arrested for second-degree child rape. She was released from bail, and then in May of that year, she gave birth to her and Billy's daughter, Aubrey. Her trial began in August of 1997, and she pled guilty to these charges in exchange for a 3-month jail sentence. So the judge was like, listen, you just gotta go to jail for 3 months, and when you're released, you can no longer contact Billy, and if you do contact him, you will go back to prison. Well, she didn't really listen to the judge because just 1 month after she was released, she was caught in a car with Billy with $6,200 in cash, baby clothes, and her passport, leading police to believe that her and Billy were planning to flee the country. It's insane because she literally only went to prison for 3 months for doing something so brutal. The only rule that she had to follow after was to not contact Billy, but she couldn't even do that. After this, Mary was once again arrested, and at this time, she found out that she was pregnant for a second time with Billy's baby. Now, in the second trial, Mary was actually sentenced to 7.5 years in prison. While in prison, Mary gave birth to her and Billy's second daughter, Georgia, and Billy's mother kind of stepped in and was like, listen, I'm just going to raise these 2 daughters because you're going to be in prison for the next 7 years. During this time, Steve also filed for divorce against Mary, and then him and their 4 children just moved away to Alaska to have a fresh start. Fast forward to August of 2004, 42-year-old Mary is released from prison, and at this point, Billy is now 21 years old. Since he's an adult, he decides to file a motion to have the judge release the no contact order, and it gets granted. So with this, Mary and Billy get in contact with each other again, they begin dating, and then they kind of move on with their lives. Next year, on May 20th of 2005, they actually get married at a winery with about 250 guests present. At this point, Mary was 43 and Billy was 22. Mary has done multiple high-profile interviews talking about this because, of course, this was big news at the time, and Mary denies doing anything wrong. She really hasn't accepted the fact that she was an adult and she was pursuing a young boy. She actually gets really upset in interviews when you refer to Billy as a young boy because in her mind, he wasn't a young boy. He was the boss in the situation and he was the one who pursued her. Now fast forward all the way to 2019, Billy and Mary end up filing for divorce. The relationship was just no longer working, and then a year later in July of 2020, Mary actually passed away at the age of 58 due to cancer. Just 2 months before she passed away, Billy actually moved back in with her despite them being divorced. He was kind of there to help take care of Mary and just be by her side in her final days. I do think that what Mary did is extremely wrong, and it's just kind of frustrating and really sad how she never took full responsibility. As for Billy, in 2022, he actually gave birth to a 3rd child with his new partner, and it seems like he's genuinely happy with his family. I do just wish him the best, and I truly hope that he is healed from this. If you or someone you know is being abused, please contact the number on the screen.
This is the woman people are calling the real-life Gone Girl. She faked her own horrific abduction and wasted 5 years of police time. You're not going to want to miss this one. It is absolutely insane. This all begins November 2nd of 2016. Keith Papini returned home from work at around 5 p.m. He was expecting to come home to his 34-year-old wife, Sherry Papini, and his 2 kids, but they weren't home. Keith called the daycare where his kids were staying and asked when Sherry came to pick up the kids. The daycare then told him that she never came, so the kids were okay. He immediately finds this very strange, calls the police, and reports her missing. This was taken very seriously by the police. She seemed to have vanished out of thin air. It wasn't long before the news was reporting on it, and her missing posters were all over California. Because there were no leads, fingers pointed at Keith, the husband. Everyone thought it was Keith. He even took a polygraph test and passed it, but people still thought it was him. That's until 22 days later, when Sherry returned. 150 miles away from where she was last seen, a driver finds her walking on the side of the road in chains. This driver called the police and she was brought in. She was covered in bruises. She had lost weight and her back had been branded. Understandably, police were shocked. When asked what happened, she claimed that 2 Hispanic women abducted her. She claimed that they were going to sell her to a man and that's why she was branded. Police were taking this very seriously. Sherry explained in detail the abuse that she went through and the room she was in. She also described the women enough for them to create a sketch of people who did not exist, because it was all a lie. Police found it very strange that these abductors just let her go, but this isn't to say that they didn't believe her. They definitely did, and they took it very seriously. They were determined to find out who did this to this poor mother of 2. The government helped pay for therapy for her PTSD and anxiety after this event. During this time, police were testing her clothes and they finally found DNA. This DNA belonged to a man, not a woman. And she apparently encountered no men during this kidnapping. They put it through the police database and nothing came up. That's until 2020 when they decided to put it through a genealogy database, hoping that someone related to the person with this DNA went on like Ancestry or anything like that. With this, they were able to find the exact person with that DNA. And this person was Sherry's ex-boyfriend. The story only gets crazier from here, so come back for part 2. It'll be up the moment I'm done filming.
Peekaboo.
Who the hell is that?
How did you get down there?
I'm Peter.
Oh, hell
It's
no.
nice to meet you.
Oh, hell no. That kid's cooked.
When Timmy went missing, what do you remember?
He's close to Neverland, and he must act now to take the children with him.
It's time to collect.
Oi, freak! You gonna pay for that?
Done.
I'm Peter. Do you know what I have?
Don't worry about Michael. I'm gonna take him to Neverland.
Oh yeah, those kids are
So
cooked.
if you need a hand,
They're all going to Neverland. Packed them up real quick.
Wow.
Who wants to come to Neverland with me?
Oh, whoa, bro.
It's my duty to send the kids to Neverland and protect them from this world.
In a place where you can be a little boy for the rest of your existence.
Bro, this looks insane.
Marco?
Hello.
Oh, hell no, bro.
Marco?
Nah.
Hello.
Oh, this looks great. This looks great.
Scariest Facts You Didn't Know, Part 23. There's a haunted house called the McCamey Manor. People there can be subjected to hours of torture, abuse, and humiliation. You need to sign a 40-page waiver to be let in, and the only cost is a single can of dog food. In this waiver, it states that the owner will not let you out unless you are having a serious mental crisis or are suffering from near-fatal bodily harm. Panic attacks do not count, even severe ones. There is a $20,000 reward for those who finish, but nobody has ever completed it. The longest anyone has lasted was 6 hours, and it can be as long as 10 hours.
This perverted woman snuck into morgue and essayed over 40 corpses. This is a disturbing case of Karen Greenlee, a necrophile who described herself as a morgue rat. So Karen actually worked as an apprentice embalmer in Sacramento, California. On December the 17th, 1979, she stole the body of a 33-year-old man. Her intentions were to SA the corpse. Now on this occasion, someone actually saw her steal the body, and therefore police were able to easily track her down. And when they found her, she was trying to unalive herself. Authorities took her to the hospital, her stomach was pumped, and her life was saved. Since she was trying to unalive herself, she had written a chilling goodbye letter. In that letter, she confessed to having slept with the corpses of over 40 men. She said that the smell of death turned her on, and she admitted it was some sort of addiction. Lucky for Karen, at the time she was arrested, necrophilia was not illegal, and so she only spent 11 days in prison, and that was for trying to steal a dead body. Since then, Karen has changed her name and moved to another city. And let's just hope she kicked that addiction. I'm Harves, and if you want to hear more stories about real life people, hit the plus.
Tommy Cooper, a renowned British comedian and magician, died on stage on April 15th, 1984. It was during a live broadcast at the Her Majesty's Theatre in London. Tommy, who is known for his wit and physical comedy, suffered a heart attack and collapsed while performing a magic trick. The audience, thinking it was part of his act, continued laughing and applauding, unaware of the tragic reality of the situation. It wasn't until the crew rushed on stage to assist him that the audience knew something was wrong. Tommy Cooper was pronounced dead shortly after. This incident has become an infamous moment in comedy history. In 1977, the University of Evansville's basketball team lost their lives in a deadly plane crash. The only member of the team that did not die was 18-year-old freshman David Furr, and that's only because he wasn't on the plane due to a nasty ankle injury. 2 weeks after the crash, David Furr and his younger brother Byron passed away in a car accident near Newton, Illinois, leaving the entire 1977 Evansville's team wiped out. This is just so sad and tragic, and I can't believe this actually happened.
What would you do if you saw this man appear at your doorstep? We need to talk about this super creepy video footage of this gas-masked man coming up to someone's door. And the coolest thing about it is it's actually marketing for the new horror series called Teacup. I just love when horror marketing takes a step into real life. These ads really creeped me out because I think we're all scarred from the 2016 clowns. And I'm not trying to be stalked by a random gas-masked man. Now, if you look at the billboards, it also says, "We are not in control." And given that Teacup takes place for over 48 hours on a rural farm in Georgia, I'm guessing this is going to be some sort of evil entity that takes over people's families or just one person at a time to do horrific and unspeakable acts to other people. Teacup is produced by James Wan's production company Atomic Monster, so I'm pretty hyped for this. You can stream this new mystery horror series Teacup on Peacock, premiering in October. I love me a good horror series, and I want to know why we are not in control.
Artifact Porn, Part 3. This was one of the fake heads used as a decoy when 3 prisoners escaped from Alcatraz Island in 1962. They made them from soap, toothpaste, toilet paper, and human hair, and left them in their beds while they were crawling through vents to freedom. Whether or not the men survived their journey across the freezing cold bay remains unknown to this day. This Victorian-era glass eye was made into a mourning ring after the death of its owner. This 3,000-year-old ancient Assyrian carving is the oldest known depiction of a scuba diver. It shows a man diving using an inflatable bag made of goat skin to breathe. A slice of England's iconic A303 road shows how it's changed over thousands of years. In 1998, this heartbreaking letter from a wife to her deceased husband in 1586 was found in an unmarked grave in Korea. It reads, "You used to always say to me, let's live together until our hair turns white and die on the same day. So how could you go ahead and leave me behind?"
I worked security at Disneyland. I've been with the company for 23 years. And 3 days ago I got a call from management. Apparently, a couple of days before that, our housekeeping had gone into a room that should have been turned over that day. Turned over is when a guest leaves at about 11 AM and the next guest checks in at 3 PM, and all of the guests' items were still in that room, even though they should have left. Housekeeping made a note of it and moved on, but during the next 2 days, when they entered the room again, everything was still there and untouched. I went in to check it out, and sure enough, there was an empty room full of luggage, clothes, snacks, and some toys, everything a family would need for a vacation. The manager had already looked up the previous reservation, and it was for a family. Dad, mum, 2 little kids. I tried to call the family's phone numbers that they had given us, but all I got was voicemail. We were all a bit stumped, so I made the call to the housekeeper and told her that she could come clean the room and take the family's personal items to be held until we got in contact with somebody. I went digging into the reservation a bit more. The family had arrived 5 days before housekeeping discovered all of their stuff. I found that the family had paid a parking fee and their vehicle description was listed, so I took a quick walk around the parking lots and I easily located their vehicle, so that ruled out a car accident or them deciding to just leave all their stuff behind. Next, I saw that they had bought a dining plan. This is where guests prepay for all their food. They're giving a certain number of credits to use for meals. This family had only used 3 credits and the last one was 2 days after they checked in. It appeared that that day they arrived, they got here late and probably just stayed on the resort. The next 2 days they used 2 credits at Epcot. Second park day, they used just 1 credit at Magic Kingdom and it was at breakfast time. Now at Disney we have something called Magic Bands. Magic Bands are worn by guests and act as a room key, park key, credit card, dining reservation payment, fast pass, everything like that. The day that they went into the Magic Kingdom, they had breakfast at a restaurant in the park, rode a couple of rides, and their last ride was around 11 AM, then absolutely nothing. Called up a co-worker at Magic Kingdom and I asked him to pull up the security footage for It's a Small World during the time that they were riding it, and I made my way over there. When I got there, my friend was very confused, almost distraught looking. He showed me what he found. There's usually a camera in the direction of where the rides load and unload. The footage showed them scanning their bands to use fast passes for the ride and then boarding the ride. The footage from the exit of the ride just showed the other people in the car exiting. They weren't there. Of course, we thought the worst. Maybe one of the kids had fallen out and the mum and dad and the other kid got off in the middle of the ride to help them and they all got injured and killed or stuck in machinery or something. So we shut the ride down, middle of the damn day, turned off that earworm music, turned up the lights. Me and my buddy walked that ride 3 times before we called in for help. Eventually there was close to 10 cast members searching and we didn't find anything except for 3 cell phones and a hat. I kept digging for the next past couple of days and I'm not sure who to tell what I found to next. I've called the police and I suppose they're on their way, but the company has a way of covering things up like this and I can't live with myself if I don't put out some type of warning. I kept digging into their reservation over the last couple of days and today I noticed they had purchased Memory Maker. There are photographers all over the parks and cameras in a lot of the rides, and with Memory Maker the photos are all free. They're automatically added to the guest's Disney account when the system knows their picture has been taken, and the system always knows. Everyone's whereabouts are always known with the Magic Bands. Well, I opened up their Memory Maker photo album and I swear there's 732 pictures. The first 30 or so are pretty normal, Epcot, a few rides in front of the castle, but the rest are all in It's a Small World. The rides only take 1 picture per go around, so it appears as though this family has ridden this ride over 700 times. The first picture was pretty normal, everyone looked happy, it was a busy day and a full car of guests. The next one is rough to look at. The car is empty except for this little family and they look so darn confused. The next 10 to 15 I can see the dad getting angry, yelling. The mum is holding on to her 2 kids like her life depends on it, and you can see the kids getting increasingly upset, crying, and it goes on and on and on. After 50 or so it looks like they're trying to get out. In one of the photos the dad is missing, in another one they're all gone. Maybe like they've bailed early in the ride and tried to walk out, but in the very next one they're all right back in that damn car. After around 450 or so, I only see the mum and the kids. It's just when I look closely I can see the dad, maybe just his body now, slumped down in one of the seats. Since about 675, there's just mum and 1 kid, another body in another seat. The mum and kid aren't moving anymore. I think them 2 are still alive, just damn near catatonic, looking straight ahead, pale. And y'all, I swear on my life, the dolls are moving around or something. In some of these pictures, I can tell that they aren't where they should be. I even saw 1 doll in the car with the family. I can't look anymore, I'm going to lose my lunch. I closed the album. Its file size has increased since I closed it. God, are there new pictures being added? I see on the security cameras that the local PD has just arrived, so they'll take over soon. I wish I knew what the fuck was going on, but I also wish this damn thing had never landed in my lap. I don't think I'll be able to update this. After I talk to the police, I think I'm just going to walk out of here and never come back. I just wanted to get this out there before Disney feeds the media some bullshit cover-up as to why a whole family has disappeared. They didn't disappear. I know where they are.
Comparisons that will blow your mind. This is the world's smallest computer compared to a grain of rice. The computer is 1 cubic millimeter, which is pretty crazy seeing as the first computer took up an entire room. This is the women's USA basketball team versus the El Salvador team. El Salvador is the smallest country in America, and you can see that here. This is the size of a tornado compared to wind turbines. You may be asking, what wind turbines? Well, they're right down here. This is a needle compared to a bee stinger. You can see that bee stingers are way sharper. There are also ridges ensuring it won't fall out of whoever it stings. This is the outside of a doorknob compared to the inside. The outside has been exposed to the elements causing massive decay. This is Mercury compared to the Sun. And if you're curious how big this is compared to Earth, here you go. This is a supercarrier ship compared to a kayak. This is a mining truck compared to a school bus. This is the difference between a yacht and a super yacht. Yachts can cost a few $1 million, whereas super yachts can cost billions.
Let's talk about the cannibal that made a real-life snuff film. So on May 29, 2012, mysterious packages began arriving at various businesses around the Montreal area in Canada, including an elementary school. Each of the packages contained the severed and decomposing remains of a 34-year-old man named June Lin. Police were able to trace June's last known whereabouts to the apartment of 30-year-old Luca Magnotta. Now, Luca was a man who was so obsessed with getting famous that he was willing to do the most disgusting and vile acts imaginable just to get people talking about him, which included posting videos of himself online torturing and unaliving kittens. Police were able to determine that June had been unalived on May 24th, 5 days before his severed limbs were mailed to police, and using that information, they discovered something even more disturbing. On May 25th, the day after June was unalived, Luca actually uploaded a video to the website bestgore.com entitled "One Lunatic, One Ice Pick." The video depicted June Lin tied to a bed completely naked, and Luca standing over him before stabbing him repeatedly in the chest and the neck with an ice pick. Afterwards, the video depicts Luca decapitating June and then cutting off his arms and his legs. From there, the video gets even worse, and it shows Luca using June's severed head and his severed arms to masturbate himself. After that, Luca is seen cutting chunks of flesh and meat away from June's buttocks and then feeding them to his dog and also attempting to eat them himself. Luca stated he did all this in an attempt to get famous and that he was not sorry at all for what he did, and he is currently serving life in prison.
Photos taken before disaster. This is a photo of William Dave Sanders guiding more than 100 students out of the cafeteria during the Columbine High School massacre. Unfortunately, he was later shot twice in the chest and didn't survive. Follow for more cases like this.
This is why you don't want to go out in the woods alone at night. Reddit user Hellraiser K says that he lives on a 13-acre property in rural farmlands. He says that he lives on the same property as his parents, and that they converted one of the farmhouses into their house in the backyard. The thing about where he lives, though, is that while he lives in a wide clearing, beyond that clearing, they're surrounded by woods on 3 sides. Needless to say, they don't get many visitors out there. He says that from the time that they moved into the house about a year ago, there's been some occasions where they get this inexplicable feeling of fear and terror. He says that he's been in the woods his whole life, but for some reason, the woods in this area are different. In every other place he's lived, the woods are like home, but here, he feels as if he's trespassing on someone else's home. He goes on to say that the other night, he was walking his dog pretty late. It was around 11 p.m., so it was pitch black outside. The only thing that was casting light were the floodlights coming from his house. All of a sudden, he heard a sound that sounded similar to an owl's hoot. The thing about this sound, though, was that it almost sounded like a person imitating an owl. So, Hellraiser K decided to say, "Ha ha, very funny, Dad," since he assumed it was his father closing up the barn for the night, and he was trying to scare him. The thing was, though, after he said that, nobody called back. He says that his dog's hair raised up on his spine, and he started to give a low, menacing growl in the direction of the noise. He says that he's never seen him act this aggressively. Suddenly, while they were staring out in the pitch blackness, he heard the same fake owl sound come from only a few feet away. His dog suddenly jumped and started barking. Hellraiser K got so scared that he grabbed his dog, scooped him up, and took off running. Then, he started hearing laughter coming from behind him. The next morning, he went out to where he heard the sound coming from. It turned out that it had been coming from the barn. But upon examination, the barn doors were broken off the side and were swung past each other the wrong direction. And there was no signs of any intruder. Hellraiser K says that he has no idea what it was that was making that noise, but that it had to be pretty strong to break those doors. What do you think this was? Someone trespassing on his property, playing a prank on him? Or could this have been something else? Maybe a skinwalker? Or a ghost?
People who live streamed their passings, part 1. Here we have 19-year-old Ocean, who was from France, and she worked at a retirement home. On May 10th of 2016, she would go live on what would be her last Periscope of her life. She'd start this live in her apartment, talking about how depressed she was and how she couldn't really find the energy to get out of bed. She'd also go on to talk about her ex and how bad of a person he was and how that he had abused her. Even with all this, she'd be picked on and made fun of in the comments throughout the whole live. During this live, she would warn her younger viewers and tell them to sign off, as she has something very big planned as her way to send a message, but like I said, nobody was really taking her too seriously. Eventually, she'd end up leaving her apartment and heading over to Egley train station, where she would sadly throw herself right into a train, and this train would hit her, and unfortunately, she would not survive. This would all be captured on live, and the next thing you'd see would be one of the first responders attempting to end the live stream, and he would actually do that at around 4:30.
Something is going on down in Antarctica. It's 1959 and all the world nations agreed to sign a treaty stating that nobody owns the continent of Antarctica and made it a region dedicated to scientific research and protecting its environment. This treaty has never been broken, and many people wonder why the continent is locked down even in times of conflict, and that they just might be hiding something down there. For entertainment purposes only, of course. Here's the top 10 theories for Antarctica. Since the 1940s, there have been rumors of UFOs and alien bases hidden throughout Antarctica. Eyewitness testimonies from military personnel and scientists stationed down there have reported silvery disc-shaped craft performing impossible maneuvers in the skies, very similar to recently declassified UAP footage from the government. So maybe there really is something going on down there. Some massive cave entrances found by satellite or video during expeditions are thought to be potential gateways to the Hollow Earth. Nobody is better connected to this theory than Admiral Byrd and Operation High Jump, where he led a massive military expedition to Antarctica, officially for research purposes, but according to Byrd's alleged diary, he described finding the entrance to the Hollow Earth and met with representatives from the lost Inner Earth civilization of Agartha. So you've got these pyramid-shaped structures all over the place. Are these really pyramids in Antarctica? Well, the official story is that these are just mountains that are eroded by the weather, and definitely not man-made structures. But some think that these are evidence of a lost ancient civilization that was swallowed up by the ice thousands of years ago. Next up is this mysterious map from 1513, created by the Turkish admiral and cartographer Piri Reis. It's said to be made from much older source maps, and it accurately shows the coast of South America, and what's strange is that it leads down and connects to the coast of what looks like an ice-free Antarctica, which is impossible because this map was made 300 years before Antarctica was discovered. So how could anyone know what Antarctica looked like before it froze over, unless someone mapped it millennia ago? You've probably heard of the face on Mars, but did you know that Antarctica has something similar? Officially, this is just more mountains and glaciers and ice, and probably pareidolia, or the human tendency to recognize patterns and see faces when there really aren't any. But with all of the UFO, alien, and ancient civilization theories, it's pretty strange that there's just this alien-looking face just hanging out there. Kinda looks like something to me. And then you've got these places, which are named after billionaires, like Rothschild Island or Rockefeller Plateau. Now, these families officially don't own any of these areas, as nobody is allowed to actually own land in Antarctica according to the treaty. But there are some theories suggesting that there could be some nefarious and evil activities happening there by the rich and elite, but it's probably nothing. It's probably fine. There are stories of giant monsters like the Ningen or Organism 46b in Antarctica, but the wildest one comes from the story of Son of Antonon, who was an anonymous user on a message board, who claimed that his father was stationed at McMurdo Base in the 1990s, and after a bunch of wild happenings, he found out that there were these giant spider creatures called striders that were frozen in the ice that scientists reanimated and woke up and pretty much bodied everyone. Now, this is unconfirmed and likely just made up, but what if there really are some unknown, terrifying creatures hiding down there? And Missing 411 isn't just limited to America. No, we've got the story of a scientist named Carl Robert Disch, who was stationed down at a research camp in Antarctica in 1965. The day Carl went missing, he just got up and walked away from the camp like some force was compelling him to do so. And the strange part is, after 4 miles, his tracks abruptly stopped, like someone or something just plucked him off the ice. And to this day, nobody knows what happened to him. And then we have sky ice. These mysterious deep blue chunks of ice are rumored to be studied in secret by the government. Sky ice is said to be slightly flexible, unmeltable, and is close to absolute zero in temperature. And this mysterious material will eventually shrink or evaporate, much like dry ice, until it's completely gone. Some believe this stuff is part of an alleged ice wall or dome structure that allegedly surrounds the Earth. You know the theory. And finally, the ones who run everything, the Anunnaki. First spoken about in ancient Sumeria, some believe these sky gods came down from the planet Nibiru, made humans to mine gold and other materials, and then pieced out tens of thousands of years ago. But some think that they may still be here, operating in the shadows, in secret unknown bases under Antarctica, or even in lands beyond the ice wall, hidden far away from us, where they meet with the world leaders and elites to direct world events for the future. But what do you think? Let's see if the dead internet theory comes alive for this one.
After hearing strange noises around his home, a man named Danny began to document this unusual activity. But one day, while completely alone, he experienced something that still haunts him till this day.
case has been talked about a lot, but we are coming up on 2025, and if these boys are not found, their dad could get out of prison. These are the Skelton brothers. Andrew was just 9, Alexander was 7, and Tanner was just 5 years old when they went missing. The boys' parents had split up, and from what I'm understanding, their parents split up because their dad had tried to take them out of school to take them to Florida to his parents' house without their mother's knowledge. It seems like their marriage was pretty tumultuous from the beginning, and that's when their mom decided to leave their father and she was granted custody. This is the boys' mother, Tanya, and she would allow the boys to go spend Thanksgiving 2010 with their father in Morenci, Michigan, and I might have said that wrong. She was scheduled to pick up the boys the day after Thanksgiving, but her ex-husband, John, stopped communicating with her completely. After John was not communicating with Tanya anymore, she decided to go to the house, but nobody was there. He was at the hospital getting treated for a broken ankle. Now, he told hospital workers that he had broken his ankle trying to take his life. This is when Tanya called the police, and police were able to get access into John's home, and what they found inside was that the house was completely destroyed, but the boys were nowhere to be seen. Police would go talk to John and try to get some information out of him, and he would change his story several times. At first, he told police that the boys were with friends. Then he changed it to, I gave the boys to some woman that was never, he never disclosed who it was. And then he told police that he gave the boys to an underground network to keep them safe because Tanya would hurt the children. Police were able to use phone records to track John's movements throughout the day that the kids went missing. On November 26th in the morning, his phone did ping in Morenci, and then it pinged later on 20 minutes away from his home in Ohio. His phone then shut off, and it did come back up in Morenci about 2 hours and 15 minutes later. We'll get into more in part 2. Give me a couple of minutes to get it up. It'll be down in the comments. Here is part 2 to the case of the Skelton brothers. Since the day the boys went missing, there have been several search parties. This case has gotten national attention, and John has changed his story several times, but the boys have never been found. But John still claims that he gave the boys to someone, that they are safe and that they are with this person. But genuinely, I believe that if he had given them, they would have come forward by now, because 2 of the boys would be over 18 at this point. All of the boys would be over 18 at this point. And what's strange about this case is this was not the first time that John had attempted to take the kids away from Tanya. He, like I said in the last video, he tried to take them to Florida without Tanya knowing about this. She was actually just given full custody of the boys right before they disappeared. I strongly believe that John was angry that she had received full custody and he did something to the boys. He is currently in prison, but and it is in connection to the boys, but it's unlawful imprisonment. He has not admitted where the boys are, if something happened to them, or what has gone on. And Tanya has actually just requested the courts to declare the 3 children deceased. But if the boys aren't found, John could be released as early as November of 2025, so basically in 1 year from now. He has had several parole hearings and has been denied them, and the last one, I think he didn't even show up to his parole hearing. But I just really wish that we could get answers for Tanya, and that whoever did this sounds like his dad, but that's all alleged, just to cover my own butt. But it all seems like their dad is essentially going to get away with murder if he did it. I don't know, this case has so many twists and turns, and like I said, I am not covering all of it here, but I would really love to know your thoughts and what happened to these 3 boys. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments and follow for more true crime.
I have got different wings.
If your ding-along is not your desired size, stop blaming your parents, stop blaming your genetics. It's not their fault. Everybody seems to think you're stuck with what you got, but I call cap. If you're not waking up with it every day ready to go, then you're just having blood flow issues, and that's why it's not reaching its maximum potential. Luckily, instead of taking the blue man pill, there's natural remedies for this. Check this out.
The most traumatic effect I've ever seen was somebody who had his testosterone down in the low twos, or I think it was like low twos, and he got it up to the 700 range, but that's an outlier, right? Most people are going to see about a 300 to 400 point increase.
And that's what the two of them synergist
will actually make the testes grow. It's a noticeable difference. So
everybody wants that.
And luckily for you, I found something called Kingmaker. It contains Phaedogia agrestis, Tonkat Ali, and so much more. This can have you feeling like the man you've always dreamed of being. I went ahead and linked it right here on the TikTok shop. Make sure to act fast because it's on massive sale right now, and this sells out quick all the time, and I'll see you guys there. Let's get it.
I ordered an iPhone from the dark web. Let's unbox this. Is there an actual iPhone in here? There is. Does it still work? It turns on. But why is there a green line? Huh? It's ringing. John Pork is calling. Who is John Pork? Who is this big man?
Yeah, I think we need to talk about The Simpsons because I have no idea what to do with this information. Time travel, esoteric knowledge, the Mandela effect, 2012, CERN, Project Looking Glass. I don't know. So basically the quick rundown is that The Simpsons have made upwards of 30 at this point insanely accurate predictions about the future. And it's almost like every time something huge happens in the world, The Simpsons has already predicted it like 10 years ago. And it sounds like funny and cute, kind of, oh, it's like The Simpsons conspiracy theory. And then it blows up and becomes absolutely world-breaking. So because this is such an all-encompassing theory, I'm just going to stick to what I believe are the most impactful and craziest examples of Simpsons predictions in this video. Okay, example 1 is episode New York versus Homer Simpson. This episode aired in 1997, almost exactly 4 years before 9/11 happened, and Bart can be seen holding up a big wad of cash in front of a magazine that says New York with a weirdly huge $9 label on it, and just behind the $9 you can see the Twin Towers acting as the 11 in 9/11. Whoa. Example 2, moving right along, we have the episode called Bart to the Future. So in the year 2000, the Simpsons writers not only predict that Trump will become president, but they seem to pull an actual frame out of the video of Trump's announcement for his presidential bid. So you can see right here, Trump on the escalator, and I want you to look to the left of your screen at that little vote sign. And just as Trump gets closer to the kid, he drops the little vote sign. Okay, here, 15 years later, on an identical escalator, right after Donald Trump announces that he's going to run for president, he's going down the escalator, exact same camera angle, and you can see on the far left that someone's holding a sign. Okay, there's the sign, and as they get further down the escalator, the girl drops the sign. Sign. No sign. Sign. No sign. Okay, now for what I think is just the most jarring, insane example of this theory. The God particle. So scientists tried for decades to discover what would be called the God particle, or the Higgs-boson particle. And basically the Higgs-boson particle is something that gives other particles mass. To simplify it even more, it's basically the thing that our universe is made out of. It's like a building block of reality. And this particle was discovered in 2012 using the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. The God particle was discovered at CERN in 2012. What does this have to do with The Simpsons? Well, how about I tell you right now? In the 1998 episode Wizard of Evergreen Terrace, Homer can be seen drawing an equation on a chalkboard. This equation accurately describes the nanomass of the Higgs-boson particle 14 years before it would be discovered by scientists. If you want to hear more Simpsons predictions or more about CERN and the significance of 2012 and the Large Hadron Collider, comment part.
Mia McConnell was a 19-year-old college student who lived in Orlando, Florida. On September 24, 2021, Mia disappeared from her apartment. When she missed a flight to see family and she didn't return anyone's calls or text messages, her family grew concerned and called the police. The family informed the police of 27-year-old Armando Caballero. He was a maintenance worker at the same apartment complex that Mia lived in, and he grew an unhealthy obsession with her. Her family knew that he would constantly text her, try to talk to her, give her money. He just would not take no for an answer. When confronted by the police, Armando denied any involvement in Mia's disappearance. Although Mia's family prayed for a safe return, sadly, Mia's body was found in the woods. On October 2nd, 2021, Mia's body was found in the woods. Both her hands and mouth were both duct taped. Mia's body was badly decomposed and her cause of death was undetermined. However, murder was most likely the cause. Armando was the police's main suspect, and just a few days before her body was discovered, he committed suicide on September 27th. The police found out that the maintenance worker used a master key in Mia's apartment, and they also found Mia's hair and blood in his belongings. It's sad that killers want to take the coward way out by committing suicide, thinking everything will be okay, and it's not. However, in March 2022, Mia's law was approved. This law requires a background check with access to a master key and requires tenants to be giving a 24-hour notice before entering their apartment. Me personally, I feel like they should have already had something like this in place. What a beautiful, innocent life that's been taken. Alright, y'all, that's it, and I'll be back to do more true crime videos for you guys.
Long content loving horror fans, I just started my very own podcast. I'm going to be posting new episodes every week. It's of course on Apple, Spotify. As of right now, I've got 3 episodes up. One that's about all the behind the scenes of the Human Centipede, horror films, fact versus fiction when they're based on a true story, and what it's like to be a scare actor at a haunted house. If you want, you can leave a comment telling me what episodes you would like to see from me, what you would like to hear me talk about.